The will read, "The old shed in the village." Everyone scoffed at her, but when she found what grandfather had hidden, their laughter froze in their throats forever. The story began with a phone call that changed everything. Before we start, let us know in the comments where you're from. Please subscribe, hit the like button, and watch until the end. Here we go. The phone rang at 6:30 in the morning. Martha jumped, spilling coffee on the counter. Calls at that hour never boded well. "Martha, it's your grandfather." The voice was weaker than usual, tinged with an unfamiliar anxiety. "Come over today. We need to talk about something very important." Her heart thumped. Grandpa never dramatized things, never called so early. "Grandpa, what's wrong? Are you sick?" No, my health is fine. It's just, we need to have a serious conversation. Very serious." A pause hung in the receiver. Martha could hear her grandfather breathing heavily. "Will you come?" "Of course. I'll be there in an hour." "Good. And Martha, don't tell anyone I called." The line went dead. Martha stared at the phone, a chill running down her spine. Grandpa Charles, in his 75 years, had never uttered a single unnecessary word. If he was asking her to come first thing in the morning and keep it quiet, something truly extraordinary must have happened. Or maybe he was just fed up with his relatives. Martha chuckled, pulling on her jeans. Oh yes, there was plenty to be fed up with. Her own family was a prime example of how not to live. Her parents had divorced when she was 15. They'd done it spectacularly, with shattered crockery, arguing over possessions, and mutual curses. Her mother immediately found a new husband, a businessman with 3 children from previous marriages. Her father wasn't far behind. He married his secretary, who was only 5 years Martha's senior. "Forge your own life, darling," her mother had said before moving to her new home. "We've lived ours." Martha was 17 then, but worse than her parents were her aunts on her mother's side. 3 sisters, Audrey, Valerie, and Clara, true harbingers of doom in human form. Daughters of Grandpa Charles, they'd competed since childhood over who could grab more from life. Marriages of convenience, intrigues, constant arguments over money, and they hated Martha. They hated her because Grandpa loved her the most. He called her his princess, gave her lavish birthday gifts, while their own children, his other grandchildren, were often an afterthought. The aunts considered this a blatant injustice. "Why her?" Aunt Audrey would hiss after every family gathering. "What's so special about her?" What was special was that Martha, the only one in the entire family, came to Grandpa just because. Not for holidays, not when she needed something, but simply because she missed him. She'd arrive with freshly baked cookies, sit beside his workbench, and listen as he recounted stories of antique clocks. Grandpa Charles was a clockmaker all his life. He'd mended time in others' homes, alarm clocks, wall clocks, intricate old mechanisms. Golden hands, people said. They came to him from all over town when their beloved clocks stopped ticking. "Time is the only thing we truly possess," he'd tell Martha, carefully dismantling a complex mechanism, "and the only thing we can never get back." His aunts didn't understand these conversations. They only understood one thing. Grandpa owned a large 3-bedroom apartment downtown. He had a car and supposedly some savings. That's what interested them. Martha often noticed them exchanging glances when Grandpa started coughing or complained of tiredness. Something predatory flickered in their eyes. They were waiting for him to die. This thought always made Martha feel sick to her stomach. How could one wish for the death of someone who had given them life, who had raised them, fed them, clothed them? But the aunts didn't care. They were already mentally dividing the inheritance. The bus to Grandpa's neighborhood took 40 minutes. Martha nervously fiddled with her bag strap the whole way, replaying the morning conversation in her head. Grandpa's voice had sounded like a farewell, as if he was about to say something that couldn't be taken back. Maybe he was sick? Perhaps the doctors had told him something terrible, and he wanted to prepare her for the worst? Martha shook her head, chasing away the dark thoughts. Grandpa was strong despite his age. He would live a long time yet. He definitely would. But the anxiety wouldn't let go. It sat like a heavy lump in her chest, whispering, "Something's happened. Something very bad has happened." Stepping off the bus, Martha checked her watch. 8 o'clock. Grandpa would surely be awake. He always rose with the sun, brewed strong tea, and sat down at his workbench, a lifelong habit. Only today his workbench, it seemed, would have to wait. Today, Grandpa wanted to talk about something very important, and Martha was afraid to find out what it was. Grandpa opened the door before Martha even had a chance to knock. He stood on the threshold in his old dressing gown, hair disheveled, eyes red from sleeplessness. "Come in, granddaughter." His voice was tired, but there was a certain resolve in it, like a person who had made a difficult decision and was now ready to articulate it. The apartment smelled of machine oil and old clocks. On the workbench, disassembled parts of mechanisms lay in disarray, but Grandpa didn't even glance at them. Instead, he walked into the kitchen, gesturing for Martha to sit. "Tea? Grandpa, you're scaring me. What's happened?" Charles slowly lowered himself into the chair opposite her. His hands trembled slightly, either from nerves or age. "Martha, I want to talk to you about my will." The word dropped like a stone into quiet water. Martha felt her heart skip a beat. "Grandpa, don't talk about that. You're healthy. You'll live for a long time." "Listen to me." He raised a hand, stopping her. "Listen carefully. I made my will 2 months ago, and I want you to be prepared for what's written in it." "I don't need anything." Martha grabbed his hand. "Do you understand? I only need you." Grandpa smiled, but it was a sad smile. "I know, granddaughter. That's why you're the only one I can trust with the truth." He stood, walked to an old cabinet, and took a folder of documents from the bottom drawer. He returned, placed the folder on the table, but didn't open it. "Your aunts think I'm an old fool," he said quietly. "They think I don't see their glances, don't hear their whispers behind my back. Audrey was asking if I needed help with my banking just the other day. Valerie inquired about my insurance, and Clara even offered to move in with me, to help around the house." Martha grimaced. She knew perfectly well what kind of help her aunts were after. "They think I'm blind," Grandpa continued, "but I see everything. I see them looking through my cabinets when they think I'm not watching. How they examine the furniture, estimating its worth. How they discuss my apartment, thinking I can't hear them." "Harpies?" Martha blurted out. "My daughters," Grandpa corrected, but without condemnation. "I raised them that way. Gave them everything they wanted, never made them work, never taught them to appreciate what they had. My fault." He opened the folder, pulling out several sheets covered in his neat handwriting. "In the will, I divided the apartment and the car equally among them. Fairly, as it should be. They expect it, Let them have it. And me? You've inherited the old house in Birch Creek Village, 15 miles from town. Martha blinked in confusion. A house? What house? The one your grandmother and I built in our youth. We dreamed of living there in retirement, cultivating a garden, raising chickens. But your grandmother passed away, and I never brought myself to move there. The house has stood abandoned. It needs repairs. Grandpa, but that's pennies compared to the apartment, right? He chuckled. Your aunts will think the same. They'll laugh at you, say your old grandpa slighted you. Martha frowned. Something in Grandpa's tone made her wary. But you didn't slight me, did you? Grandpa was silent for a long time, examining his hands. The hands of a master, which had repaired thousands of clock mechanisms over half a century. Martha, I want you to promise me one thing. When you get this house, don't sell it. Live there, at least for a while. Okay, but... And another thing, he looked her directly in the eyes. No matter what happens, no matter what your aunts say, remember, I did everything so that you would lack for nothing. Do you believe me? Of course I do. Then promise me. Don't tell anyone about our conversation, and don't be surprised by what's written in the will. Just accept it as a given and move on with your life. Such seriousness in Grandpa's voice sent shivers down Martha's spine. Grandpa, you're scaring me. Tell me straight, what's going on? What's going on is what's supposed to happen. He folded the documents back into the folder. Time, granddaughter. Time puts everything in its place. He stood, walked over to her, and kissed her forehead. Now go. You probably have things to do. But we just... Go, Martha, and remember, no matter what, your grandpa loves you very much. As she left, Martha turned back. Grandpa stood in the doorway waving. At that moment, he seemed very small and very alone. If this story resonates with you, please like and comment. This helps our channel grow and share more stories like this. The call came on a Thursday morning. Martha was at work, sorting through documents, when her phone vibrated on the desk. An unfamiliar number. Hello? Is this Martha Carter? A woman's voice, official, dry. I'm calling from St. Jude's Hospital. Your grandfather... The world tilted. Words reached her as if through cotton wool. Heart attack. Ambulance. Too late. My condolences. The receiver slipped from her hand. Grandpa had died Wednesday night into Thursday morning. Neighbors found him in the morning. He hadn't answered their calls, and the door was unlocked. He was sitting in his armchair by his workbench, his head thrown back, his face peaceful. On the table lay a disassembled clock, the last piece he'd never finished. Martha was the first to arrive at the hospital. Documents, the morgue, formalities, it was all a blur. She signed papers with a trembling hand, not understanding exactly what she was signing. Grandpa was dead. He would never call again, never hug her, never tell her a story about antique clocks. Her aunts arrived an hour later. Audrey, Valerie, and Clara stormed into the hospital corridor like a flock of vultures, eyes red from tears, handkerchiefs in hand, wailing for all the hospital to hear, a perfect picture of grieving daughters. Our dear Papa, Aunt Audrey wailed, clutching her heart. How will we live without you? Martha watched the performance and felt nauseous. Where were you when he was sick? Where were you when he asked for help? But within half an hour, the tears had dried, and the aunts got down to business. We need to organize the funeral, Aunt Valerie said briskly. Martha, You're a student, you have no money, we'll take care of everything. And we need to decide what to do with the apartment, Aunt Clara added. There are many valuable things there. Can't leave it unattended. They didn't even wait for the funeral. On Friday, even before Grandpa was laid to rest, the aunts appeared at his apartment with keys. Where they got the keys, Martha didn't know, but she suspected they'd begged them from neighbors under the pretext of urgent matters. Martha went there herself. She wanted to pick up a few photos for remembrance. And she stumbled upon a scene that almost made her faint. The apartment had been ransacked. The aunts rummaged through cabinets, pulled out drawers, tossed things about. Grandpa's clothes lay strewn on the floor. Books were swept off shelves. The workbench was turned upside down. "What are you doing?" Martha cried out. "Looking for documents," Aunt Audrey replied, not looking up. "And valuables. Papa might have hidden something." "We need to find expensive clocks," Aunt Valerie huffed, rummaging through a chest of drawers. "He worked with precious clocks all his life. He must have kept some for himself." "There could have been money, too," Aunt Clara echoed. "He didn't put everything in the bank." Martha stood in the doorway, unable to believe what she was seeing. They were destroying the home of the man who had raised them, rummaging through his personal belongings like jackals, scavenging carrion. "Stop this immediately!" "And what are you doing here?" Aunt Audrey finally looked up. "It's too early for you to meddle with the inheritance. This is my grandpa's house." "This is our father's house," Aunt Valerie said coldly, "and we have every right to be here." The funeral took place on Saturday. The aunts wept at the coffin, accepted condolences, portraying inconsolable grief. Martha stood to the side, feeling like a stranger at her own grandfather's funeral. And on Monday, the will was read. The notary, an elderly woman in a severe suit, laid out the documents on the table. The aunts sat on the edge of their chairs, greed gleaming in their eyes. "According to the will of Charles Johnson," the notary began, "the 3-bedroom apartment on Main Street is bequeathed in equal shares to his daughters, Audrey Johnson, Valerie Johnson, and Clara Johnson." The aunts exchanged glances, barely suppressing their triumph. "The Ford pickup truck is also bequeathed to the daughters in equal shares." "And what about the granddaughter?" Aunt Audrey couldn't resist. The notary turned a page. "His granddaughter, Martha Carter, is bequeathed the house in Birch Creek Village." Silence. Then Aunt Valerie snorted. "A house? What house?" "A single-story house at Birch Creek Village, Forest Lane, number 15, a 6-acre plot." "It's a ruin," Aunt Clara laughed. "My husband and I went to see it about 3 years ago. The roof leaks, the stove doesn't work, the garden is overgrown with weeds." "Just like our papa," Aunt Audrey scoffed. "He leaves us an apartment worth $200,000, and his favorite granddaughter gets a dilapidated shed." They laughed. They sat in the notary's office and laughed at Martha, who had received a shed instead of a share in an apartment. "Maybe he lost his mind in his old age," Aunt Valerie whispered. "Why did he treat his granddaughter so unfairly?" "Oh, well," Aunt Clara waved a hand. "The main thing is we got everything, and she can go plant potatoes in the village." Martha remained silent. She sat and listened as her aunts divided her grandpa's inheritance, as they laughed at his last wishes. Inside, everything burned with resentment and pain. Leaving the notary's office, Aunt Audrey stopped beside her. "Don't be offended, Martha. Papa probably wanted to teach you a lesson about life. You'll work in the village. You'll understand the value of money. And besides, Aunt Valerie added, you're young. You'll earn your own money. What are we supposed to do at our age? They left, discussing which room each of them would get. Martha remained alone on the steps of the notary's office. People walked by, each busy with their own affairs. No one paid attention to the young woman who had just lost the last person she had left in the world. Grandpa had left her a crumbling house in a remote village. Her aunts laughed, calling it a mockery. But why, then, had he said before his death, I did everything so that you would lack for nothing? Why had he asked her not to be surprised by the will, and why did Martha feel that Grandpa was hiding something? Maybe we shouldn't? Andrew stopped at the crooked fence, surveying the house. Look at this architectural marvel. The roof leaks. The foundation has settled. The windows are boarded up. Martha got out of the car, breathing in the air. It smelled of pine needles, damp leaves, and something else. Clean. Forgotten. Air like you couldn't breathe in the city. I like it, she said softly. Seriously, you like this old wreck? Andrew had been her boyfriend for 2 years. They met at university. He was in engineering, she in business. Tall, fair-haired, with kind eyes and skilled hands. He could fix anything, from a faucet to a car. When Martha told him about the inheritance, he didn't laugh like her aunts. He just said, if you decide to go there, I'll go with you. Why? Because I love you, you silly goose. Now they stood before the house that Grandpa Charles had once built with his own hands. A single-story, red brick house, with a high porch and carved window frames. Yes, it needed repairs, but there was something about it, alive. You know, Andrew walked around the house, professionally assessing its condition. Maybe it's not so bad after all. The foundation is solid, the walls are sturdy. Your grandpa knew how to build. The key turned stiffly in the lock, but the door opened. Inside, it smelled of damp and dust. Sunbeams pierced through cracks in the window boards, drawing golden stripes on the floor. 3 rooms, a kitchen, a wood-burning stove in the corner. The furniture was old but sturdy. A solid wood wardrobe, an oak table, a bed with metal frames, everything covered in a thick layer of dust. Grandpa really thought my grandmother and I would live here, Martha whispered, tracing a finger across the table. Photographs hung on the walls. Grandpa, in his youth, in work overalls. Beside him, a beautiful woman in a summer dress. Grandma, whom Martha barely remembered. They stood by the unfinished house, embracing, smiling at the camera. How old were they here? Andrew asked. Grandpa, 25, I guess. Grandma, a little younger. So young, dreaming of their family haven. Martha nodded, a lump in her throat. Grandpa had never shared details about those times. Only sometimes he would say, we wanted to live in nature, raise children in peace. But Grandma died when her mother was 10, and Grandpa stayed in the city, closer to work, to hospitals, to schools. And the house stood empty, waiting. The aunts were right, Andrew sighed, examining the kitchen. Everything needs replacing here. The plumbing doesn't work, the wiring is old, the stove probably won't light. But you'll help fix it? We'll try, but it will cost quite a bit of money. They indeed had little money. Martha worked part-time tutoring. Andrew did odd repair jobs. They were saving for a wedding, dreaming of their own apartment. Now those plans had to be reconsidered, but they started working immediately. Andrew was right. Grandpa had built with integrity. The house needed cosmetic repairs, but the foundation was as solid as rock. In a week, they tidied up one room, connected the water, and got the stove working. "Maybe we should really stay here," Andrew suggested one evening as they sat by the stove with tea. "We can't afford an apartment in the city, but here we have our own house. I'll find a job in the district center. You'll figure something out, too." Martha looked at the fire in the stove and thought about Grandpa. Why had he left her this particular house? Simply because her aunts didn't want it? Or was there another reason? In the second week, they had a visitor. Martha was sweeping the porch when she heard a meow. She turned. A little face peered out from under the house. An orange cat, thin with intelligent green eyes. "Where did you come from, handsome?" The cat approached cautiously, sniffed her outstretched hand, and allowed himself to be petted. He purred so loudly it felt like the whole house vibrated. "Looks like he's looking for owners," Andrew said, coming out onto the porch. "Maybe he wandered off from a neighbor's." But neighbors lived far away, and the cat was clearly a stray. Martha brought him some milk, then a piece of sausage. The cat ate ravenously, purring thankfully. "Should we keep him?" she asked. "What will we name him?" Martha looked at his ginger fur, his white paws. "Whiskers. You'll be Whiskers." Whiskers seemed to understand and approve. He rubbed against her legs, jumped onto the porch, settled down by the door, as if saying, "Now I live here." With the cat, the house truly came alive. Whiskers would greet them from work, warm himself by the stove, catch mice in the basement. He was smart. He quickly learned where his bowl was, where the litter box was, and where he could sleep. "Grandpa would have loved him," Martha said, watching the cat hunt autumn leaves. "He definitely would have. Look at that character." In the evenings, they sat by the stove, planning further renovations, talking about the future. Andrew sketched plans for a new kitchen. Martha knitted a scarf. Whiskers snoozed on the rug. Almost a family idol. But sometimes, especially late in the evening, a strange feeling would wash over Martha, as if the house held a secret, as if Grandpa had left her not just a home, but something more. She wandered through the rooms, examining every corner, every board, searching for something without knowing what. A letter, hidden money, an explanation of why Grandpa chose this house. "What are you looking for?" Andrew asked one day, catching her in her peculiar activity. "I don't know," Martha answered honestly. "I just feel like Grandpa wanted to tell me something important. Maybe he just wanted you to be happy. Maybe." But the feeling persisted. Grandpa Charles was a man who did nothing without reason. Every action of his had meaning, every decision a cause. This house was no accidental gift either, but what secret did it hold? October was warm. Golden leaves swirled in the air, carpeting the forest paths. Martha and Andrew walked in the woods every weekend, gathering mushrooms, breathing the clean air, taking a break from renovations. "Whiskers, come here," Martha called. The cat darted between the trees, hunting rustling leaves. Suddenly he stopped, pricked his ears. Something had piqued his interest. What did he find? Andrew walked towards the cat. Whiskers sat by an old tree stump, staring intently into the undergrowth. A soft whimper came from within. "There's something there," Martha whispered. They parted the branches and saw him, small, gray, trembling with cold, a puppy no more than a month old, huge paws, tall ears, eyes as blue as the autumn sky. "Oh, my goodness," Martha sighed, crouching down. "Where did you come from, little one?" The puppy lifted its head, whimpering pitifully. Its ribs showed under its gray fur. It was clear he hadn't eaten for days. "Probably abandoned by careless folks," Andrew said angrily. "Bought in the spring, then got tired of him in the fall. Jerks!" Martha carefully extended her hand. The puppy sniffed, licked her fingers with a rough tongue. The trust in its eyes was boundless. "Are we taking him home?" "Of course. We can't just leave him here to die." The puppy turned out to be surprisingly calm. He allowed himself to be picked up, nestled against Martha's jacket, and immediately fell asleep. Whiskers walked alongside, occasionally sniffing his new friend. At home, they made a spot for the little one by the stove. They laid down an old blanket, set out bowls of water and milk. The puppy drank eagerly, then curled up and fell asleep. "What will we name him?" Andrew asked. "Rex," Martha said without hesitation. "He's going to be the king of the forest." Rex seemed to hear his name, cracked one eye open, then fell asleep again. And Whiskers did something incredible. He walked over to the sleeping puppy, carefully lay down beside him, and began to lick him. Like a kitten, like a younger brother. "Look," Andrew whispered, "he's adopted him." From that day on, they were inseparable. Whiskers and Rex ate from the same bowl, slept on the same bed, played together. The cat taught the puppy how to use the litter box, showed him the best places to sleep, protected him from scary noises, and Rex grew by leaps and bounds. After a month, he was the size of Whiskers. After 2, he was 1.5 times larger. His paws went from comically large to simply enormous. His snout elongated, his ears sharpened. "He's a strange puppy," Andrew muttered, watching Rex play with a stick. "Too wild." "What do you mean?" "Look at how he moves, how he watches. Dogs have a different gaze." But Martha paid no attention to these oddities. Rex was affectionate, intelligent, loyal. He greeted them from work like a dog, played with Whiskers like a kitten, obeyed commands like a well-trained pet. Problems began in December. By then, Rex had grown to the size of a German shepherd. His fur became coarse gray with black markings. His tail was long and bushy. His muzzle was narrow, his eyes yellow. Andrew was the first to realize the truth, but he remained silent. He didn't want to upset Martha. And then a neighbor came. Mr. Henderson lived a mile away, keeping a garden, chickens, and a goat. A man in his 60s, stern, taciturn. He would visit occasionally to borrow salt or read the newspaper. That day, he arrived with a serious expression. "Martha, I need to talk to you." "Please come in, Mr. Henderson. Would you like some tea?" "No time for tea." He looked at Rex, who was lying by the stove next to Whiskers. "Who's that you have there?" "A dog. Rex. We found him in the woods, very small." "A dog, you say?" Mr. Henderson chuckled. "My dear, that's a wolf, a real gray wolf." The words dropped like stones into quiet water. Martha felt her heart skip a beat. "What are you saying? It can't be." "It can, and it is. I've been in these woods all my life. I know my wildlife. That's a wolf cub, guaranteed." Rex lifted his head, looking at the guest warily, a flicker of wildness in his yellow eyes. "I understand you've grown attached to him," the neighbor continued, "but when he grows up, you'll be in a world of trouble. A wolf is a wolf. Instincts will kick in sooner or later." "But he's tame," Martha protested. "He plays with the cat, obeys commands." "While he's small. But when he's an adult, that's another matter. He might start preying on neighbors' chickens, or worse, attack people." Andrew remained silent, but his face showed that the neighbor was right. "What do you suggest?" Martha asked coldly. turn him over to a wildlife park. Or, Mr. Henderson paused, euthanize him before it's too late. What? Martha jumped up. Are you serious? Rex also got up, standing beside his owner. Whiskers meowed, rubbed against the wolf's paws. I understand you're fond of him, but it will be better for everyone. Leave, Martha said softly. Leave my house immediately. My dear, you don't understand. I understand everything, she cried. Rex is a member of our family, and if anyone tries to harm him, they'll regret it. Mr. Henderson shook his head, heading for the door. Suit yourself, but don't say I didn't warn you. The door slammed shut. Martha sank to the floor beside Rex, hugging his neck. A wolf, so be it. She didn't care. Do you really not care? Andrew asked softly. I don't care. He's ours. Rex licked her cheek. Whiskers purred. A strange family. A girl, a boy, a cat, and a wolf. But a family nonetheless. Outside, the wind howled, and Martha thought that Grandpa never did anything by chance. Perhaps Rex's appearance in their lives was no coincidence either. Perhaps this was all part of a larger plan she didn't yet understand. Winter arrived mild and snowy. The house was buried in white drifts, and even the neighbors stopped visiting. The road was snowed in. Martha and Andrew lived in a cocoon, work in the district town, evenings by the stove, weekends with Whiskers and Rex. The wolf grew even larger. Now he was the size of a big dog, but remained just as affectionate and loyal. Though on walks, he stayed wary, constantly sniffing the air, turning his head at every rustle. Instincts are awakening, Andrew said, watching Rex freeze at the edge of the woods. So what? He won't hurt us. I hope not. In February, Andrew received a bonus at work. $1,500, a fortune for them. That evening, he came home with a bottle of champagne and a mysterious smile. What are we celebrating? Martha asked, seeing the bottle. Our future. He sat down beside her on the sofa. Martha, let's get married. Her heart skipped a beat. They had talked about marriage many times, but always postponed it. Either no money, or the timing wasn't right, or some other reason. Seriously? Absolutely. I have money for rings in the courthouse. No big reception, but we'll be husband and wife. Martha pressed against him, feeling her eyes well up with tears. Yes, 1,000 times yes. Whiskers meowed from the windowsill as if approving the decision. Rex lifted his head, looked at them with yellow eyes, then lay back down by the stove. Just imagine, Martha said dreamily as they drank champagne. A real wedding, a white dress, flowers, guests. Someday we'll have that too, Andrew promised. We'll earn money, throw a party for the whole world. And a honeymoon? Where do you want to go? Martha closed her eyes, imagining. To the coast, to Italy or Greece, or even further, to Thailand, the Maldives. I want to lie on white sand, listen to the sound of waves, eat exotic fruits. And I want to go to a deserted island with you, Andrew confessed. Just the two of us, no one else. Palms, the ocean, and no one to bother us. Romantic. To the end of my days. They made plans late into the night. First, a simple civil ceremony in the spring when the snow melted. Then save for a bigger wedding. In a year or two, maybe buy a car. Then a honeymoon in warm climes. Do you want children? Martha asked. Of course, at least 2, a girl and a boy. They'll grow up here in the village, fresh air, the woods, the stream, an ideal childhood. Like a fairy tale. Yes, like a fairy tale, if it weren't for one but, money, or rather, the lack of it. Andrew earned $2,000 a month in construction. Martha, 1,500 working as a bookkeeper for the county administration. 3,500 for two of them. It was peanuts. They didn't pay rent thanks to Grandpa, but other expenses were unavoidable. Maybe we should move back to the city, Martha suggested one evening. Salaries are higher there. What about the house, Whiskers and Rex? I don't know, but they didn't want to go back. It was good here, peaceful, as if time had stopped and they could live with simple joys, stoking the stove, cooking dinner, watching the snow outside the window. Sometimes, especially on quiet evenings, Martha thought about Grandpa. She imagined how happy he would have been at their decision to get married, how proud he would have been that his granddaughter found happiness in the house he built for his family. "Thank you, Grandpa," she whispered, looking at his photograph, "for the house, for the peace, for a new life." Of course, the house wasn't a mansion. Of course, money was always tight. But here she was truly happy. For the first time in her life, she felt at home. "You know," Andrew said in late February as they planned their civil ceremony, "your grandpa was a wise man." "Why?" "He didn't give you money. He gave you a home. Money you would have spent, but a home, that's forever. A foundation for a family." My aunt still laughed that he slighted me. "They're fools. They don't understand the main thing." "What's that?" "That happiness isn't in money. It's right here." He gestured around the room where Whiskers and Rex slept by the stove. "In the home, in the family, in peace." Martha nodded, but something stirred inside her. A strange feeling that had haunted her since they moved in. As if Grandpa wanted to say something more. As if the house held a secret she hadn't yet deciphered. "Andrew, don't you think Grandpa was hiding something?" "What do you mean?" "I don't know. It just sometimes feels like he left me more than just a house. That there's something else here." Andrew chuckled. "Treasure, perhaps? A hoard under the floorboards?" "Maybe." "Martha, your grandpa was a clockmaker, not a pirate. What treasures?" "Grandpa said before he died, 'I did everything so you wouldn't lack for anything.' And I am lacking. We have no money. The work pays next to nothing. But you have a home and love. Maybe that's what he meant. Maybe." But the feeling didn't let go. Grandpa Charles never spoke idly. Every word of his carried weight. Every promise was kept. If he said she wouldn't lack, then that's how it should be. But how? Outside, the wind howled, swaying the bare branches of the trees. Rex lifted his head, sniffing warily. Something was bothering him. "What's wrong, boy?" Martha asked. The wolf stood, walked to the window, peered into the darkness, then returned to the stove, but didn't lie down. He sat and stared towards the cellar. "He's acting strange," Andrew muttered. "Maybe he smells mice." Maybe. But Martha felt it wasn't about mice. Rex was staring into the cellar as if he knew something important there, something even they didn't know. Perhaps it was finally time to go down there and see. March brought the first thaw. Snow began to melt, revealing last year's grass and muddy patches. The house became damp. The walls were moist. The corners were covered in mildew. "We need to air out the cellar," Andrew said, descending the wooden stairs with a flashlight. "Otherwise, everything down here will spoil." The cellar stored Grandpa's preserves, jars of pickles, tomatoes, compotes, whole shelves of canned goods, enough to last a year, plus potatoes, carrots, beets, everything Grandpa had grown in his last summer. "I'll bring a couple of jars of tomatoes," Martha called from above. "I'll make stew." She descended into the cellar, holding a flashlight. The air below was stale, smelling of earth and old wood. The walls were paneled with planks, the floor was packed earth, the ceiling low, just above a person's height. Rex followed. He descended the stairs cautiously, sniffing each step. He clearly didn't like the cellar. He stayed at the very bottom of the stairs, ready to bolt upstairs at any moment. "What's wrong? You nervous?" Martha asked, taking a jar from the shelf. "It's safe here." But the wolf didn't listen to her. He paced along the walls, sniffed the corners, whined softly. Something was deeply bothering him. "Whiskers, come here," Martha called. The cat followed, but also behaved strangely. His fur bristled, his tail fluffed up. He meowed with an unnatural sound, anxious, piercing. "What's wrong with you two?" Martha wondered. Rex went to the far wall, sniffing it particularly carefully. Then he stood on his hind legs, resting his front paws on the wall paneling. One of the planks swayed. "Andrew, come here," Martha cried. "Look at this." Andrew came down, shone the flashlight on the wall. "What happened?" he asked. "Rex found something. The board is loose," Martha explained. Andrew came closer, touched the board with his hand. Indeed, it was held by a single nail. The others had fallen out or rusted away. "Probably time," he suggested. "The house is old. The nails can't hold." But Rex didn't calm down. He clawed at the board, whined, trying to shove his snout into the gap between the planks. "What's in there, boy?" Martha knelt beside the wolf. "What did you find?" Rex looked at her, then back at the board. His yellow eyes seemed to say, "Understand, something's in here." "Take the board off," Martha requested. "Why?" Andrew asked, surprised. "Just take it off. It's interesting to see what's there," she insisted. Andrew shrugged, grabbed the board with both hands, and pulled. The wood cracked, the nail flew out, and the board fell to the floor. Behind it was emptiness. "What in the world is that?" Andrew murmured, shining his flashlight into the hole. There was a gap of about 12 inches between the main wall and the paneling. Sawdust lay there, insulation, which Grandpa had filled in during construction. But the sawdust was uneven, as if someone had disturbed it. "Shine here," Martha asked, sticking her hand into the hole. Her fingers hit something hard, cold, metallic. "There's something there," she exclaimed. Her heart pounded like crazy. Martha began to clear away the sawdust, throwing it out in handfuls. Andrew removed a couple more planks, widening the opening. "Oh, my God," Martha breathed. In the hidden compartment lay a metal box, small, about the size of a shoebox, but heavy, covered in dark paint, with a simple latch. "Where did this come from?" Andrew whispered. "Grandpa hid it," Martha said with certainty. Martha carefully pulled out the box, placing it on the floor. Her hands trembled with excitement. Rex sat beside her, looking at the box knowingly. "See? I told you." "Shall we open it?" Andrew asked. "Of course," Martha replied without hesitation. The latch was unlocked. Martha lifted the lid and gasped. Inside the box were two items. The first, a letter in an envelope inscribed, "To my beloved granddaughter." Grandpa's handwriting, neat letters she'd known since childhood. The second item made her heart stop. A velvet jewelry box, black, antique, expensive, with a gold clasp. Grandpa had seen such boxes thousands of times in his workshop. They held the most precious jewels. "What's in there?" Andrew asked impatiently, peering over her shoulder. Martha opened the box, and the cellar grew brighter. On a velvet lining lay earrings, but not ordinary ones, diamond earrings. Large stones sparkled in the flashlight's beam like stars. An antique cut, a white gold setting, master craftsmanship. "My God," Andrew whispered, "that's a fortune." Martha took the letter with trembling hands, unfolded it. Grandpa's handwriting, familiar words. "My dear Martha, if you are reading this letter, it means you have found my last gift. These earrings belong to your great-grandmother, my mother. She bequeathed them to me before her death with the words, 'Give them to someone who will love you selflessly without expectation.' I waited a long time for such a person among my daughters and grandchildren, and I found only you. You are the only one who came to me not for an inheritance, but out of love. You are the only one who deserves these gems. But that's not all, granddaughter." Martha turned the page, continued reading. "An account has been opened in your name at the Royal Bank. The amount is $180,000. Money from the sale of rare clocks I collected all my life. Your aunts thought I was spending everything on food and medicine, but I was saving for you. Every dollar, every cent. Now you will not lack for anything. Get married, have children, live happily, and remember, Grandpa loves you very much. P.S. To find this secret compartment, you will be helped by someone you love selflessly, without expectation, just like you loved me." The letter slipped from her hands. $180,000. Diamond earrings. A fortune hidden in the wall of an old cellar. Rex approached, licked her hand, as if saying, "I knew it. That's why I brought you here." "Martha," Andrew called softly, "do you see this?" "I see it," she whispered. "Is it true?" he asked, disbelieving. "It's true," Martha nodded. They sat in the cellar among the sawdust, embracing, while nearby diamonds sparkled, the last gift from a wise grandfather who had foreseen everything. They sat in the cellar among the sawdust, unable to believe the reality of what was happening. Martha held the diamond earrings, turning them in the flashlight's beam. The stones glittered, casting rainbow reflections on the walls. "I don't understand," she whispered. "How did he hide all this? When?" "He probably built the house specifically with the secret compartment in mind," Andrew suggested. "Your grandpa turned out to be cleverer than all of us." Martha picked up the letter again, rereading it from the beginning. Every word resonated with pain in her heart and gratitude at the same time. "Listen to this," she said, pointing to the lines. "Your aunts thought I was spending everything on food and medicine, but I was saving for you, every dollar, every cent." "So he scrimped and saved?" Andrew gasped. "It seems so. Remember how the aunts always said he was stingy, that he was cheap with his grandchildren, and he was just saving. For me." Her voice trembled. Martha imagined Grandpa denying himself small pleasures, setting aside every dollar, how he secretly sold his clock collection, his life's work, to secure her future. $180,000, Andrew repeated, as if still disbelieving. "Martha, do you understand what this means?" "What does it mean?" she asked absently, still reading the letter. "A wedding, the real wedding you dreamed of. A white dress, a reception hall, flowers, and a honeymoon in the Maldives, and a car, and—" "Hold on," Martha stopped him. "There's something else written here." She turned the page, finding the postscript. "P.S. To find this secret compartment, you will be helped by someone you love selflessly, without expectation, just like you loved me." She read aloud. Andrew frowned. "I don't understand. Who helped you? Me?" Martha looked at Rex. The wolf sat beside them, watching with intelligent yellow eyes. "No," she said quietly, "not you. Rex? What? Andrew didn't understand. Rex led us here. He found the board. He showed us the secret compartment. Grandpa wrote, "Someone you love selflessly." We loved Rex selflessly, a small, sick, unwanted wolf cub that everyone considered dangerous. Andrew nodded slowly, understanding dawning in his eyes. Your grandpa foresaw that too? He foresaw everything, Martha whispered in awe. He left me a house in the woods knowing I would find Rex. He knew we would love him. He knew that he would be the one to lead us to the treasure. But how could he know there would be a wolf cub in the woods? I don't know. Maybe he just believed that if a person has a kind heart, they will always find someone who needs help. Rex stood up, went to Martha, and laid his head on her lap. She stroked his soft gray fur. "Thank you, boy," she whispered. "Thank you for bringing us here." The wolf whimpered softly, as if understanding every word. "It still feels like a dream," Andrew admitted. "An hour ago, we went down for a jar of tomatoes, and we found 180,000. "Almost 200,000, Martha corrected. "The earrings are worth money, too." "A lot?" "I don't know, but Grandpa cherished them his whole life. So they must be valuable." She carefully placed the earrings back in the velvet box, closed the lid. "What are we going to do?" Andrew asked. "I don't know," Martha answered honestly. "It still doesn't feel real that this is all ours." "Check the bank tomorrow?" "Of course, and if Grandpa wasn't joking." "Then we're rich people," Andrew finished. Rich. The word sounded strange. All her life, Martha had counted pennies, bought the cheapest things, dreamed of things she couldn't afford. And now? "Should we tell the aunts?" Andrew asked. Martha snorted. "Absolutely not. Can you imagine how furious they'd be? To find out that their favorite granddaughter received a real inheritance and they got scraps. They thought Grandpa slighted you." "Let them keep thinking that. For now." Martha carefully folded the letter into the envelope, took the jewelry box. "Let's go upstairs," she suggested. "It's cold down here, and I want to properly process everything." They went up to the house. Whiskers met them at the stairs, meowing discontentedly. Why had they been gone so long? Rex went to his spot by the stove, lay down, but didn't close his eyes, watching. "You know what amazes me the most?" Martha said, settling into the armchair. "Grandpa died 3 months ago, and it feels like he's still looking out for us." "He is," Andrew replied softly. "Through this house, through Rex, through his letter." Martha nodded, feeling her eyes fill with tears. "I miss him." "I know, but now I understand. He didn't leave completely. He left me more than just money. He left a plan for my entire life, a home where I'll be happy, a husband who loves me. He even found a 4-legged friend." "4-legged friends," Andrew corrected, looking at Whiskers. "Yes, 2 4-legged friends." She opened the box, looked at the earrings again. Antique craftsmanship, flawless diamonds, her great-grandmother's inheritance, whom she had never met. "It's strange," she murmured. "My great-grandmother bequeathed them to Grandpa with the words, 'Give them to someone who will love you selflessly.' And Grandpa gave them to me for the same reason." "A family tradition," Andrew smiled. "It seems so." Outside, it was dark. The house smelled of home comfort, warm bread that Martha had baked that morning. Rex snored by the stove. Whiskers purred on the windowsill. An ordinary evening in an ordinary village. Only now a small miracle had entered their lives. the last gift from a wise grandfather who managed to ensure his beloved granddaughter's happiness even after death. "Tomorrow, a new life," Martha whispered. "Tomorrow," Andrew agreed, "and today, we just can't believe it." In the morning, Martha woke up thinking it had all been a dream. The cellar, the box, the earrings, a beautiful fantasy of a tired mind. But on the bedside table lay the black velvet box, and beside it, Grandpa's letter. Reality? "Andrew," she called, but the house was quiet. She got up, went to the kitchen, a note on the table. Went to the bank to check on the account. "Don't worry if I'm gone a while. Love, A." Martha smiled. Andrew couldn't wait. He wanted to make sure Grandpa hadn't been joking about the bank account. Rex lay by the stove, watching her with yellow eyes. Whiskers curled up beside him, purring in his sleep. A strange pair, a cat and a wolf, who had become family. "You understand what happened yesterday, don't you?" Martha asked, sitting next to Rex. "You found what Grandpa hid for us." The wolf raised his head, listening intently. "It was all planned from the beginning," she continued, stroking his fur. "Grandpa left me this specific house. Not an apartment in the city, not a cabin by a lake. This house, in the woods, where you could appear." The thoughts coalesced into a single picture. Grandpa Charles had been a master of precise calculations all his life. He repaired clocks, mechanisms where every part had to be in its place, and he constructed his final riddle the same way. Martha picked up the phone, dialed Aunt Audrey's number. "Hello?" A disgruntled voice. "Martha, is something wrong?" "Nothing's wrong, Aunt Audrey," Martha replied calmly. "I just wanted to ask, have you sold Grandpa's apartment yet?" "Not yet. We have buyers, but they're low-balling. They want to buy it for $200,000, but it's worth at least $300,000. "And the car?" "We sold the car for $30,000. Peanuts, of course, but what could we do?" Her aunt's voice conveyed poorly concealed greed, counting money she hadn't even received yet. "And you cleaned out Grandpa's things?" Martha asked. "Naturally. The clothes went to charity, the books were thrown out. But his old work clocks, we still don't know what to do with them. Who needs those old junk metal pieces?" "Junk metal," Martha repeated. "I see. Why are you asking? Had a change of heart about your shed?" Aunt Audrey chuckled. "Maybe we can swap? You get a share of the apartment, and we get your derelict place." "No, thank you," Martha said firmly. "I like my house." "Suit yourself. Rot in the village if you like." The line went dead. Martha put down the phone, shook her head. Her aunts had sold Grandpa's clock collection as scrap metal, those very clocks that Grandpa had collected all his life and sold for $180,000 to provide for his granddaughter. "They were looking for treasure in the apartment," she told Rex, "rummaging through closets, looking for gold under the mattress. But the treasure was right here, in the house, they deemed useless." The wolf tilted his head, as if listening to the story. Grandpa knew the aunts wouldn't come here. They wanted money, not a house in the village. He knew only I would come here, because I don't need money. I need a place where I can be happy. Outside the window, birds chirped. The sun played in the branches of old pines. Spring was taking hold. "And then he figured I would find you," Martha continued. "Not necessarily a wolf cub, maybe a sick dog, an abandoned kitten, a wounded bird, someone who needed help. Because people are divided into two types. Some pass by another's trouble, others stop and help." Rex got up, went to her, and laid his head on her lap. Grandpa knew which type I was, and he knew that only a person with a kind heart could find his last gift, because kind people notice what others don't see. The door creaked, and Andrew entered the house. His face glowed with happiness. "Martha," he cried, "it's true! The account exists. $180,000. "Shh," she laughed. "The whole forest will hear you." "To hell with the forest." Andrew picked her up, twirled her around. "We're rich. Do you understand? Rich." "I understand," Martha nodded. "And you know what else I understand?" "What?" He put her down. "Grandpa didn't just leave us money. He left a lesson." "What lesson?" Martha looked at Rex, who calmly observed their joy. "A lesson that true treasures aren't always obvious, that sometimes the most valuable things hide where no one looks for them. In an old house, in friendship with unusual animals, in the ability to love selflessly." "Profound," Andrew chuckled. "But money won't hurt either." "Of course not. But that's not the main thing." Martha stroked Rex's head. "The main thing is that Grandpa brought us all together. You, me, Rex, Whiskers. He made us a family. And a family, that is the real wealth." Andrew sat down beside her, hugging her. "You know what amazes me the most?" he said. "Your grandpa died 3 months ago, but it feels like he's still guiding us, like he's watching from above and smiling." "He is," Martha agreed, "and he's proud of us." She looked at Grandpa's photograph, which stood on the shelf. Young Charles Johnson in work overalls next to the unfinished house, the very house they now lived in. "Thank you, Grandpa," she whispered, "for everything, for the house, for the family, for Rex, for teaching me the most important thing, to love selflessly." Rex whimpered softly, got up, and went to the photograph. He sat opposite it, as if saluting a man he had never seen, but to whom he owed his rescue. "Look," Andrew whispered. "He understands." "He understands," Martha nodded. "Animals feel more than we think." Outside, spring was gaining strength. Soon the apple trees in the garden Grandpa had planted for Grandma would bloom. Soon they could have the wedding they planned. Soon a new life would begin, with money, dreams, and opportunities. But the most important thing they already had: a home filled with love, a family that embraced everyone, human, cat, and even a wild wolf, and the memory of a wise grandpa who managed to orchestrate his beloved granddaughter's happiness even after death. "So, we're still not telling the ants?" Andrew asked. "Someday we will," Martha replied thoughtfully, "when they understand that Grandpa was right, that wealth isn't what you can carry out of a deceased person's house, but what remains in your heart forever." Rex returned to the stove, lay down beside Whiskers. Two friends who found a home and a family, just like their owners. And in the secret compartment under the floor lay empty sawdust, all that remained of Grandpa Charles's great secret. A secret that transformed an abandoned house into a family nest, and a lonely girl into a happy heiress, not of money, of love,